how to set them, what they mean, how to manage them. The second is about the roles and responsibilities that you have, how that role is changing, the skills and responsibilities you need to take on to be successful with the roadmap. The third is about the relationships with the delivery chain. You know that if you're in a district, you depend on people in each Tessian and each Markaz and each school to be successful. So how do we make the delivery chain work? And then finally, and this will be tomorrow, we're going to talk about delivery skills, some of the key skills that you identified on these cards. So that's the agenda for the 2 days. Can I have the next slide, please? I want to, in your handbook, you will find there are some pages that you can fill in. I have a page reference, Simon, but for the first page, there's some of that to do. Sorry. So on page 18, if you look at page 18, 1-8. Okay, at the end of each section of the program, we're going to ask you to record your thoughts. You can do that in English if possible. We would like you to do it in English, but if you prefer to do it earlier, you can. Has everybody found page 18? Everybody found page 18. So if you look at page 18, all the way through the handbook, there are sections like this. And I will ask you at certain times during the day just to reflect on what you've learned and to write down what you're going to do differently when you go back to your district. And then tomorrow afternoon, we're going to help you produce a 100-day plan. So starting on the 1st of September, finishing on the 9th of December, what are the actions you're going to take to implement the roadmap? And the notes you make today will form the basis of that 100-day plan. We will then take your 100-day plans and type them for you and send them back to you. So you have a draft of your 100-day plan to use in your district. So the outcome at the end of tomorrow will not just be that you have some new skills, but you have a plan for 100 days starting on the 1st of September. So that's by way of introduction. Does anybody have any questions about anything I've said? Any questions? Is that clear? Loud and clear, thank you. Okay, right, so we're going to go back to the agenda. Anybody hear me? Yeah. Okay. We're going to go back to the agenda. Can you go back one slide? We're going to start now on the goals, targets and objectives. And I'd like to move now to slide 7. Go forward. Yeah, again. There, thank you. I want to introduce the section on targets now. You know, because I mentioned it, many of you there, that the Chief Minister announced in April that he was personally monitoring progress against the implementation of the roadmap. And you see here what he said. So he is personally committed to the targets that you have in your packs. The Secretary, at the same meeting in April, said we will review progress against these targets on a quarterly and annual basis. So all the work you do is being monitored by the Secretary and by the Chief Minister, and we're checking implementation. Next slide, please. The targets that were set in the roadmap, I think many of you are familiar with, but let me just remind you, there are targets to do with achievement in the PEC exams. You can see them on the slides here. There are targets to do with teacher quality, teacher presence, visits to classrooms by DTEs, and then teacher use of the guide, or teacher guides that DSD have produced. There are targets to do with student enrolment and attendance. There are targets to do with improving district management, your job, making sure that the free textbooks get into the schools, that the schools are visited regularly, that the district review committee works. And then there are targets to do with facilities and resources, making sure missing facilities are being put in place, making sure that the school facilities function, making sure that the non-teaching staff are there, just like the teachers, making sure that the school is clean and a fit place for people to work and learn, and making sure that upgradation of schools is happening. Next slide, please. What we did with the Chief Minister and the Secretary Mushtaq and colleagues in the department was work out targets, and you have this slide in your workbook. So for each of the things I've just been through, there's a numerical target. There's a baseline, that's the first column here. So where it says teacher presence 81%, that's current attendance. That means that on any given day in Punjab, 20% of teachers are not there. That's not good enough. 20% of teachers are not there. So we've set the baseline is the existing state of affairs. Then there's a minimum standard. Every district, every markaz, every tehsil needs to be above that minimum standard. And then there's a target for the district and the province. For the province it's 87%. You can see it's target number 6. Teacher presence, current baseline 81%, minimum 80. Everybody has to be above that. Average for the province 87%. Aspiration, where we want to get to 90%. I'm not going to go through all these targets, but in your district pack that we gave you in April, or if you're a new EDO you got today, each of those targets is spelled out for your district. Next slide, please. And here you can see, we don't need to look at the details, it's in your pack. Here you can see how we've worked out from the province data what each district needs to achieve. Many of you are familiar with this data. It's very important for you and your team in the district to get familiar with the goals for your district. Next slide, please. And then you need to monitor in your district progress. So you need, just like Secretary Schools will monitor the districts, you need to monitor the tehsils and markaz in your district. And here's an example of how you could do that. And I know, because I've read some of the homework that you did in advance, that some districts are already doing a very good job of this. Next slide, please. And then we will report, the department, with the support of my team, will report every month on these data to the Secretary of Schools and then to the Chief Minister and the Chief Secretary. This is just an example of how we will report. Next slide, please. There will be recognition for the successful, and where people are struggling, we will need to act to improve it. We need to work with districts where there's a problem to solve that problem and get them on track. So the point of the process is to improve the system, not to blame people, not to allocate blame, but to solve problems. Next slide, please. I think at this point I'm handing over to Simon Ray. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Michael. Can I just start just by saying what an honour it is for Simon, my colleague, and I to come from England to visit your wonderful city. This is our first time in Lahore, and we're delighted to be here. We're also delighted to be working with Mr. Michael again, and also to be working with you all on the reforms that you're implementing and improving education in the Punjab. As Michael said, there's nothing more important in the world than improving education systems and the outcomes for children and young people. So we are really pleased to be here and to be working with you over the next 2 days. We now have another short exercise for you, and it is on page 14 of your handbook. So if you can find page 14 of your handbook, please. And on page 14 of your handbook, you will see that there are 2 questions. We would like to see now how confident you feel about achieving the goals that have been set for your district. 2 specific goals. Firstly, for student enrolment, and secondly, for teacher presence. And what we would like you to do in the next 5 minutes, so quite a short amount of time, is with your colleague from your own district to have a short conversation to say, how confident do we feel about meeting the goals that have been set for your district, firstly for student enrolment, and secondly for teacher presence. And when you've had that conversation, we would like you to take a pen and put a cross on one of those lines, depending how confident you feel. If you feel not very confident about meeting those district goals, put a cross near that circle. If you feel, in part, quite confident, put a cross near that circle. If you feel very confident about achieving your district goals, put a cross near that circle. And you can put a cross anywhere along the line if you feel in between those 3 things. So we would like you to have a conversation for 5 minutes in your districts, and then make 2 crosses on those lines about how confident you feel. Any questions about that?
Sam, can I add something? In carrying this out, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to be worried about it. Feel free to say, well, it's for you privately. If you're not feeling confident now, that's fine. So you don't feel obliged to sound confident. Everybody is struggling. So whatever you think on the line is private for you.
So if I can have your attention.
Attention, please. Pay attention.
Right.